Hello, everyone. Last time we talked about Move 2, framing principal findings, and today we're going to talk about Move 3, reshaping the territory within the discussion conclusion sections of research papers. As we've been discussing, there are 4 moves within the discussion conclusion sections. Move 1, reestablishing the territory. Move 2, framing principal findings. Move 3, reshaping the territory. We're going to talk about that today. And Move 4, establishing additional territory. And Move 3, reshaping the territory, is a move that's really used to help redefine and update the research territory, that is your topic, in view of the newly acquired information that is the results of your particular study. And we can achieve this by positioning our current findings within a research space that's been established by previous works. So we can do this by really comparing our findings with results from previous research, and authors do this by providing references to other studies, as well as looking at the actual results, for example, of those studies and how they interact with the results of our study. So this move, reshaping the territory, is quite characteristic of discussion sections as well as of combined discussion conclusion sections, but it may or may not appear in separate conclusion sections. So as always, my caution that although we've named moves in order, 1 through 4 here, they can occur in all sorts of different orders depending on the particular needs of your discipline and your particular paper. So let's look at the steps within Move 3. There are 2 steps today, and both of these steps are either may or may not appear within the discussion conclusion sections of a particular research article. We're going to go through each step separately, and we're going to discuss the basic structure of the step, the functions that it provides, the sorts of language that helps us identify that function, and also look at some examples. And of course, just like with the moves, as I just said, although we're going to discuss these steps in order, they can occur in different orders as well as interact with steps from previous moves that we've already talked about. All right, so let's look at our 2 steps. The first step we're going to look at is called supporting with evidence, and this step functions to help authors support their claims, either made by others or made the author's claims based on their particular findings. So that is, either the authors will use their results to support other people's claims, or they will use other people's results to help support their claims. It kind of goes both ways. And we've got several different sorts of things the step can function as. It can help show how previous research is supported by the results you obtained in your current study. It can also help show how the previous findings from other people's research support your claims based on your current findings. It can also allow you to show how theoretical beliefs are supported by evidence in your particular study, how your evidence helps support particular theory in your field. And it can allow you to show how the theoretical beliefs, the support for the theoretical beliefs that you're claiming can be based on your particular findings. It also allows you to really point out the connections between your principal findings and previous research, as well as strengthen the credibility of your findings. Of course, if your findings concur with other people's, that can help strengthen that credibility of your research. So to do this, we often use language that indicates some degree of similarity, agreement, concurrence, conformity. And so phrases like something is similar to, like another thing, supports, in agreement with, are ways to indicate that you're functioning within the supporting with evidence step. So here we have an example, and this example states, the negative relationship between seed N levels and oil content is consistent with other reports. And we have a few references. So you can see here that the authors are saying that their results are consistent with other people's results. And this sentence also shows us that we can use citations within this move. So in their comparison, they're referring to some other studies. But referencing other works is not required for a sentence to be functioning with this step. In contrast to the step we just discussed, the second step within Move 2, or Move 3, is called countering with evidence. And this step really functions to juxtapose, to contrast results with other results. And so you may contrast your results that are somehow dissimilar to previously reported empirical findings, other people's results, assumptions, predictions, or theoretical beliefs that are held in your field, or to counter claims made by other people. And we use this step in a variety of ways. We use it to help show how the evidence obtained in our particular study is distinct from and perhaps different from previous studies. We also can show whether the current results are superior in some way or different in nature from other results. And we might also discuss how the evidence obtained in our current study contradicts or challenges theoretical beliefs or other types of shared knowledge within your field. And for sentences in this step, we typically use language that somehow indicates difference. Things like different, disagreement, contrast, divergence. And so all of these phrases are going to have language that also includes things like unlike, as opposed to, different from, and many more indications of this distinction. So we have one example here, and this says, one finding of the current study is the observation that individual epithelial cells can be induced to polarize in the absence of cell-cell contacts, which contradicts current thinking. So in this sentence, we clearly see that the authors are talking about their finding of their result and how that contradicts. It's different from current thinking by others in their field. And again, this sentence has an example of a reference within it, but it is not required for a sentence to have this function. That's an optional feature. Okay, so let's look at a few examples, and why don't you try to figure out which of these two steps the examples are best functioning as. As you read through, feel free to pause your video so you can get a chance to really read through the sentence as a whole and make your decision before we talk through it together. Okay, so here is your first sentence. All right, let's look through this one together. And this says, while they considered the limit that the amplitude of the bottom contour is much smaller than the film thickness in the capillary gravity wave regime, the bottom film thickness in our study is of the same order as the amplitude, and the wavelength of our bottom undulation is in the pure gravity wave regime. Okay, so this sentence has some language to help indicate that we've got an example of countering with evidence. And we get, I've highlighted for you, and while they found results that are much smaller, in our study, the results are the same. Okay, so we get this contrast between the two. They found one thing, we found something different. Don't be misled by the fact that we have the word same in here. Okay? The same is not comparing our results with their results. They're not saying that our results are the same to those. Rather, they're saying that the bottom film thickness is the same as the amplitude, which is different than the previous results where that bottom film thickness was smaller or bigger than the contour. Okay, so really be careful as you're reading that. You want to be looking for the function as a whole, and don't just focus on one particular word and decide that that word tells you the function of the sentence. Okay, here is another sentence. You got a chance to look at this one? Okay, let's read it together. It says, Vaughan et al., 1999, reported a male-specific QTL for growth on chromosome 16 that maps close to our male-specific QTL PBWG19. Okay, and here we have an example that it was functioning as supporting with evidence. And we see here that we've got Vaughan et al., a previous study, has reported a result that is close to our result. Okay, so the results don't have to be the same, but they're close to, and the authors are using this to indicate some sort of agreement or support from one study to the other study. All right, so these are the 2 steps within Move 3. And next up, you've got a reading to do to look at how these steps really get realized in a variety of contexts. Your corpus exploration tasks are critical. The discussion conclusion sections vary dramatically, and it's really important to be looking at how what we've discussed here and what you see in your reading, how that's represented in your actual field and the variety of papers within your field. And then, of course, quizzes to help you check your knowledge and make sure that you're understanding what we're talking about. Next time, we'll be discussing Move 4.